All right, from North Beach Podcast Company in partnership with TSN, welcome to episode 17 of season 2 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. Darren Dreger, along with Ray Ferraro, and today it's a special Ask Ray and Dregs Anything pre-trade deadline edition. So I ask you this, Ray, as we prepare for headlines, and we'll keep that somewhat brief because, again, we want to get to as many questions and Ask Ray and Dregs as we can. Are you up for an emergency podcast? We haven't done one of those in a while. So I'm thinking maybe post-trade deadline on Monday, April 12th, or the morning of April 13th, Tuesday.
Yeah, you know what will be good about that? We should do one Monday night.
Okay.
Because then I'll know what it was like to work in a coal mine.
Okay.
Because I'm starting at 5 a.m. for the start of Trade Center.
Right.
That ends at 2 p.m.
Okay.
This is Pacific time.
Yeah.
Then we have to tape a hit for Sports Center. So that'll finish at about 2:30 by the time it's all done. Then I got to jump in the car and drive down to the studios to broadcast the Leafs and Canadiens games.
Oh.
So I'll get there about 3:15. Warm-up starts at 3:30.
Okay.
Then once we do warm-up and then I got to talk to Jimmy, to Duffy twice again before the game starts. Then I'll do the game. That's 3 hours, basically. Finish at 7, come home and talk to you again. What a way to finish the day. I'd love it. I'll be a salty Ray for that.
You'll be salty. And look, that's a lot. I mean, I'm fully.
Oh, but it's an emergency. It's got to be done.
Maybe we delay the emergency to Tuesday. How's that?
No, because then like your brain's oatmeal. On Tuesday, just think your brain's going to be oatmeal. Monday night it is.
Okay. Well, so here's what I'll do then. For some reason, Bob McKenzie is on the panel, I guess because they only dust him off for special occasions.
Are they wheeling him out or what?
He's getting wheeled out. So
he's like a museum piece now.
Well, he's fully vaccinated and he's in good shape. You know, he's trimmed up.
Have you seen him? He looks awesome.
Great. He looks great. So I'm getting punted for the Leafs game. So I'll be fresh. I'll be ready post game for a quick emergency.
They're gonna hang on. Bob's coming out of retirement. Yeah. He's going to do the full day, and then they're going to staple him to that chair to make him do the game too.
Yeah, well, you know what?
I love it.
So when Bob renegotiated his deal, it was probably the only way he could squeeze a few more, as John Davidson used to say, shekels on the pot. So he's doing like 3 or 4 Leaf games this year, which I didn't argue with. Look, I like doing the Leaf games, but on trade deadline, you're going to experience it as you have many years.
Yep, this is the worst one I had, Dregs, was for whatever reason, I did one from the arena in Calgary, and I had to be there all day.
Yeah.
So they wanted me up for whatever was going on. So I do the trade at about 4:00. I'm like, man, I'm losing my voice here. Like I got one of those. I had to do the game by the middle of the second period. I couldn't talk. So the producer's like, don't say anything. I'm the analyst. He's going, don't say anything. So it sounded like a guy chewing on glass. And I think it was Cuthbert. It might have been Gord. I don't remember. And they basically had to take the game to finish it off themselves. That's the last time anyone's been in a rink all day.
Well, that wouldn't be a problem for Gord. He could talk a pit bull off a meat wagon. All right, we're going to jump into headlines here. But first, life of Ollie. You know, everybody loves the little personal touches that we put on the Ray and Dregs podcast. Now, you've had Ollie, the new puppy, for what, 3 weeks?
Yeah, 2.5, 3 weeks. Yeah, coming up. 3 years, 5 years. I'm not sure what it is.
So I'm thinking to myself, which you confirmed before we recorded, we've established, and we've had Cammie on the podcast to tell some great stories of how finicky you can be. I mean, you like things in a certain way. You're very organized. You're a bit of a clean freak, all of those things, which I highly respect and appreciate because I'm not quite that extreme, but I have those tendencies as well. 2 dogs and a cat in the Dreger house. Thankfully, I've got a senior citizen dog. Still has its faculties. So on occasion, it'll crap on the floor, as we've also talked about in the podcast because I stepped in it in our bedroom one time.
Right.
But for you, I mean, a puppy, it happens all the time, right? They take a squirt on the floor, but it's never on the tile or somewhere where you can just quickly clean it up and the way you go. Like, that's the part that gets me with dogs, or the new puppies especially.
Okay, so Ollie's wearing us out. I got to be honest. He's about 5 to 6 pounds. My hands look like they've got darts in them. Cammie's hands, she's with the dog more, with Ollie more. Her hands look like she just stuck them partway in a meat shredder. Like, he just,
because the dog is biting with a little
biting, and those little pencil teeth, like they're just like zing, zing, zing. Take him in, take him out. Take him in, take him out. Goes pee outside. Take him inside. Has a 3 licks of water. Goes pee again. You're like, how? Like, how did you do that? And so, I am getting quite a lot of instruction as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm not as attentive as I probably should be. Like, I sit down, I watch 5 minutes a game. I look over. Would you look at that? Ollie's gone to the bathroom again. Clean up him, clean up the bathroom. Now I've got the game on pause. It takes me 4 hours to watch a game now. If he wasn't so cute, I'd have an issue with him. But he has totally transformed the house.
For sure.
We have a bunch of throw rugs around.
Yeah.
They're all wrapped up or rolled up and put in the basement. He find piece of rug, squirt. Piece of rug, squirt. Like, come on.
So, I mean, you're probably tired of hearing the dog owners who think they know it all say, "Oh, it gets better. It's going to be great. It'll be fine," and it does, and it will eventually.
Sure.
But you're living in the moment, and right now it sucks, right? But here's what happens, and I'm not going to get too graphic because it's gross, but they do get better. But like humans, they get sick. Right? They get sick, or they'll get.
Okay, why are you telling me this? Like, I'm just getting through the first part here.
I know, but imagine a 130-pound Great Dane with the runs. Can you imagine?
No. Okay, so Ollie is going to be 18 pounds tops.
Yeah.
20.
Yeah.
Whatever is coming out of that Great Dane, out of Tiny, I can't even think about that.
Well, I'm just telling you. I mean, at least it'll be fleeting, and it'll happen once in a while, and you'll be okay.
Dregs, you're just a beacon of positivity. Moving on to headlines, will you? Before I go and put Ollie up for whatever adoption.
All right. Well, headlines brought to you by our friends at Coolbet.co. Coolbet's Kris Abbott will join us a little bit later in the podcast, as he does every week. He's got the latest Masters odds, news, and notes with round 1 underway at Augusta. You've got to be 19 years old. You've got to stay cool, bet responsibly, and check out coolbet.co for the latest. By the way, we had a conversation in our pre-work here on the podcast with Kris about WrestleMania, which we're going to have to dive into with him.
Right.
Because to me, it's a farce. It's a mega bazillion dollar industry. I understand it, but I don't understand it. So I'm curious. He wants to talk about WrestleMania, and I'm curious as to why. So we'll get to that. Headlines. Let's begin with a big trade. Your former team, one of your former teams, the New York Islanders, trading for Kyle Palmieri and Travis Zajac from the New Jersey Devils. New Jersey retains 50% of their salaries, both pending unrestricted free agents. I mean, the Islanders get better. They get older. No question about that. New Jersey, in the meantime, gets a first-round draft pick and a conditional 4th, which could be a 3rd. What do you make of this deal? I'm a fan of Kyle Palmieri. I think he's a very useful player. So how much better did Lou Lamoriello make the New York Islanders with this?
Well, I think they got better for sure. You're right. It's all about short term for them. They had all kinds of cap space with the unfortunate injury to Anders Lee. So Lou was going out to get a forward. Like, Lou with $7 million of cap space in his pocket is not an idle guy. Like, something was going to happen. So I look at the deal, and I think Palmieri has slowed down. I don't think he can do what he used to do, but he can score. He can score close to the net. The Islanders are not going to be a rush team. Right. And so why I like this deal is the Islanders are built a certain way. they're going to forecheck. They're going to control the puck with their size. And they added players that play the same way, Dregs. They didn't, sometimes a team will add a player and after the playoffs are over, you go, yeah, that guy just didn't fit. I don't think that's going to be the case here. These guys fit with the way the Islanders play. What's interesting, though, is and Tom Fitzgerald in New Jersey, the general manager, traded two very useful players and got a first and maybe a third, but a fourth. Like it's not a seller's market.
No,
that's for sure. I think that's what that first trade of the season told me, of this trade season.
Yeah, I think you're right. And look, Fitzy took a ton of heat for this trade. People thought he got absolutely fleeced. Now, the one thing I would say, and look, I'm appreciative of the 50% salary retained. That matters. I mean, literally, it's currency. Who's given a first-round draft pick for Kyle Palmieri? With all due respect, he's a good player. Boston wasn't giving a first-round draft pick for Kyle Palmieri. So Fitzy gets a first and a conditional fourth. He gets two players that are probably going to be in the American League in Jobst and AJ Greer. But in a bizarre world that we're working and living in this pandemic, with a shortened season, with all of the question marks and a flat cap and all of those things, I honestly didn't think there'd be too many first-round picks thrown out for rental players. I think he did fine.
Do you think Kevin Adams is sitting there with 6 teams offering him first-round picks for Taylor Hall? No chance.
No chance.
Like it's a hard market. The other thing, Dregs, I don't know that we've talked about enough is that, okay, so you're an owner and you had a fortune that was this big. And now it's a lot less big.
For sure.
And your general manager comes to you and says, I want to add money. And you look around and you go, at most, I got 2,000 fans in the building.
Yeah.
No. Make do with what you got. The other thing for Tom Fitzgerald as well, they clear 2 roster spots here in Palmieri and Zajac. They've got a bucket load of young guys that they're trying to evaluate. Yeah. They've now got 2 playing spots to try and move this process along. Jersey's got some really interesting young players. I know it's Jersey. I know we don't talk a lot about them. I know people don't talk about Ty Smith in the Calder Trophy race, but he's a really good player too, and nobody talks about him. Jersey got a first-round pick for this. This is about the best they were going to do.
Yeah. Well, and Fitzy being the high character man that he is, I loved his quote, right, on where he said, I hope the pick that we get is a 32nd pick in the draft. I hope both of these gentlemen win the cup. And he means it. That's not lip service.
Fitz is an old teammate. I played with him with the Islanders. He's a good man. He's just a good person.
Yeah. All right. Well, as we get into Ask Ray and Dregs in a few minutes here, again, as we're recording this podcast on Thursday, what is it, April 7th?
Yep.
8th? Something like
8th, first day of the Masters. Come on, wake up.
Yeah, of course. We're not going to dive too deep into trade speculation just because it would date the podcast, almost immediately, right? Because inevitably there's going to be things that happen, and maybe the New Jersey and the New York Islanders trade kind of gets things rolling. But we'll talk about some of it as we go through Ask Ray and Dregs. But I did want to talk about some on ice stuff in Toronto and Montreal before we wrap headlines. So Jack Campbell sets a franchise record for the Toronto Maple Leafs, going 10-0-0 in the crease. Now 13-2-1 as a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs organization. Are you buying it entirely? I mean, are you seeing enough in the play of this young guy to believe that they don't need to do anything in goal? And maybe if the negotiation with Freddie Anderson doesn't go the way that they hope, that Jack Campbell could be the answer as their number one moving forward.
3 weeks ago, no. Now, yes. And for a couple of reasons, Dregs. Is Jack going to win the Vezina sometime? No. Is he going to be an upper half of the league goalie? I think he can be. Can you win with upper half goaltending? Even if you're around the 32 starters, if you're in the 16 to 12 range, sure, why not? Look at the Stanley Cup winners over the past decade. Look how many teams have used 2 goalies.
Yeah.
Because Washington won and Philip Grubauer was the starter. By game 3, it was Braden Holtby. Right. Pittsburgh won with 3 guys one year, 2 guys the next year. Like it happens. I'm really impressed with Campbell's play. Maybe I'm a sucker for the story.
Maybe.
You know, like I'll tell you, it's impossible not to cheer for him. He just seems like such a good person. And he went and got booted to the curb. But as he was getting booted to the curb, the people that were still working with him in Dallas, they still loved him. They're like, man, I want this guy to do well. Jim Nill traded him to Los Angeles just to give him a start, a restart. Maybe they can recalibrate. We love the kid. Nothing's happening for him here.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of guys in Los Angeles that Jack has gone to great lengths to credit, and Billy Ranford, the goalie coach, and Dusty Emu, who is kind of this goalie whisperer that kind of stays in the background. And he helped Jack accept the ups and downs of the position. But I watch him play and I'm like, does he get lucky? Sure. Does every goalie get lucky? You bet. Does he make the saves he's supposed to make and then a few that he shouldn't? Absolutely. The only concern I have of the Maple Leafs is the combined health of Anderson and Campbell.
Right.
Are they going to hold up physically? Because Anderson's a question mark. Clearly that's a soft tissue issue because they don't have a timeline for him. Mm-hmm. And you know how that works with goalies. Like sometimes it looks like it's going to be tomorrow and it turns out to be a month.
Yeah.
And then with Campbell, they're trying to manage his practice time. That would be the only thing that gives me pause with the Leafs goaltending right now.
Well, we're told that Freddie is going to be fine, but what does that mean? Until
they told us he was going to be fine 3 weeks ago too.
Yeah. As you creep deeper into the season, it becomes a bigger
story.
A
concern, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of concern, Brendan Gallagher lost for the regular season at least, a 6-week injury with a fractured thumb. Such an energy guy. I don't have to sell you on Brendan Gallagher. I know that.
Love the
huge hole in the lineup. That combination with Tatar and Deneau had really just come alive too, right? So it's a significant hole in the lineup, big loss for the Montreal Canadiens because of the LTI. You know, they can go out and spend above the cap, about $3.75 million. Do they need to do that, or do they just keep things dry for now? Yoel Armia is coming back off COVID, and you've got Cole Caulfield, who everybody in Montreal, I think everybody around the NHL is intrigued to see how much of an impact he can make as a wildly inexperienced player. What would you do if you were Berge?
I wouldn't spend 3.75 on a winger that is just going to gum up the project when Gallagher comes back. There's only so much ice time to go around. I'm using that money if I can get a top line center. I know they added Eric Stahl, but they're still really inexperienced up the middle of the ice. Mm-hmm. If I can do that, sure. Otherwise, I might look for a depth piece, someone that can help fill in, because they still don't know. Even though Armia is back and starting to skate, you never really know, as we've seen, how players are going to respond coming out of COVID. Like, right. Is he going to feel good? Is it going to take till next year? Is it going to take a month? They don't really know. So maybe if I'm looking to plug that spot, I look at a depth guy, somebody that can fill in, that maybe I can move up and down the lineup. But I'm not looking at a stud player right now, because when Gallagher comes back, I got to take that guy and park him where?
Yeah.
Because if you look at the way their lineup is, they don't really have a lot of room. You know who's screwing up the whole thing? Corey Perry. He's been unbelievable. But he's been to Montreal to a certain extent what Jason Spetz has been to Toronto. Sure. Two old guys that are smart, that can still play, that can still produce. It's one thing, it's a kind of a throwaway term. Oh, they can play. No, they produce. That's the difference.
Headlines brought to you by our pals at Coolbet.co. It's time now, Ray, for our OK Tire Performance Players of the Past Week. This is the fun part of the segment. We've chewed through some of the meat. We've got an expanded version of Ask Ray and Dregs Anything coming up. You go first. Who's your performer of the week?
I'd say one of the most underappreciated players in the National Hockey League. It's 23-year-old Adam Fox with the New York Rangers. Fox has a goal and 4 assists in just a couple of games this week. I know it's for this week, but I'm going to lump this into Dregs. 11-game point streak, 3 goals and 18 assists for Adam Fox. When you start to dig a little deeper and look at some of the numbers that go behind his performance, he's in the Norris Trophy conversation.
For sure he is.
And I don't think there's any real momentum yet for it, but if more people start to see and understand what Adam Fox is doing for the New York Rangers, they're going to go, you know what? When we talk about these young guys, Makar and Hughes and Heiskanen, among others, Fox is in that conversation. Just think, 3 teams for Adam Fox before he even plays a game. Drafted by Calgary. They couldn't get him signed. They throw him into the deal with Dougie Hamilton. He goes to Carolina. Carolina couldn't get him signed. And he ends up with the Rangers. And he is a terrific player. He will definitely be in the U.S. Olympic team conversation, 100%.
All right. Adam Fox is Ray Ferraro's OK Tire Performance Player of the past week. I chewed on this one a little bit, to be fair, because we've been blessed with some high-quality performances in the past week. I mean, you go back to Matt Barzal, his hat trick, and you know how wild that one was, including the baseball swing goal. That end-to-end rush was part of that trio of offense. We just talked about Jack Campbell, noteworthy. Austin Matthews, I mean, he's healthy again, and you can sure see it. I mean, Zach Hyman continues to be what he is. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, what a night against the Ottawa Senators. I mean,
let me interrupt. How about Draisaitl's goal when his feet were in the parking lot and he hammers that? Like, what a shot. Are you kidding me?
Well, as a goal scorer, okay, just tell me how difficult that is.
Impossible, Dregs. It's not impossible, but don't forget, he's not just standing there. He had to move to that place.
Yeah.
His stick has to stay in front of the goal line or else it literally is impossible. And he beats the goalie short side, inside the post. Here's the other thing. If you're Ottawa, why would you cover him? Like when he broke through there, he's not even in a scoring spot. He wants to go stand there. Go ahead. Oh, it's in the net. Oops.
Now, instantly, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, what a terrible goal, you know? And I'm blaming the goalie. But then you watch it in the replay and you're like, holy smokes, did he just do that?
Well, here's the other thing. The guy that had the puck, are you not going to be square up to Connor McDavid? No, you're going to be square up to him.
No kidding.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, brilliant performances by Leon and by Connor McDavid. But I'm not going with either as my OK Tire.
Oh, who you got?
Kevin Fiala.
Oh, that was good last night, wasn't it?
Wednesday night. I just love stories like that. I mean, Fiala's a good hockey player. It's not like this one comes completely out of left field, although it is his first career hat trick. It was just the theater of the night, right? Like, this is a huge game for the Minnesota Wild against the Colorado Avalanche. You know, so the message was delivered by the Wild in an 8-3 thumping of one of the top contenders in the National Hockey League. Who's kidding who? We throw out statement games a little too freely. Guys like me do anyway. I wouldn't lump you into that. To me, that was a legit statement game. And Kevin Fiala was such a big part of it. So Kevin Fiala of the Minnesota Wild is my.
It was a statement game to Minnesota, to theirself, to show that they could hang with these guys. Philip Grubauer was going to be my player of the game.
Yeah. Until
he couldn't get the puck out from behind him last night. I was like, or player of the week. I'm like, yeah, I can't pick him now.
Well, you got a good one in Adam Fox. OK Tire Performance Players of the Week, presented by our friends at OK Tire, with over 330 locally owned OK Tire stores across Canada, from coast to coast, who've got you covered from top to tires. Check them out at oktire.com. OK Tire, it's going to be okay. Slide into throat punch.
Me?
I'm a little feisty with my throat punch this week.
I'm going to jump on the back of yours, Dregs. I know it, so I'm going to jump on the back of yours.
Yeah. no disrespect intended here, because I have nothing but the utmost appreciation for the medical community, especially for those like the individual that I'm going to lump into my throat punch, who have committed countless hours in the fight against COVID-19, the educating of, in this case, the province of BC, etc. However, Provincial Health Minister Bonnie Henry came out this week, and perhaps just applying semantics here, basically said that the variant that is plaguing the Vancouver Canucks has not been legitimized, right? Now, I believe, and I haven't talked to Dr. Henry about this, obviously, but when I use the term semantics, it's because everyone has assumed it's the P1, the Brazilian variant, right? That has infected the Vancouver Canucks. So in answering the question, I guess it's fair to say, well, that hasn't been confirmed. Okay. All right. What has been confirmed is that a variant has attacked the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks as an organization have confirmed that. The National Hockey League has confirmed that. So the misinformation or the lack of transparency around this story has been very, very frustrating to me. So it's a throat punch to Dr. Bonnie Henry and a throat flick, if you will, to the NHL, because this pisses me off, because I've been invested in covering this story. The NHL puts out a COVID list every day. The COVID list only refers to the main roster players. Well, the guys on the taxi squad don't count. Those cases don't matter. Like that, does that make any sense to anybody? So people are piling on me and others who are reporting the complete story, the facts. And the facts are 21 players, as we're recording this, 3 coaches, and a member of the support staff for a total of 25. All of those people matter. I don't give a rat's what the NHL's COVID list puts out on a daily basis. But there again is the underbelly, the dark side of social media, right? Because rather than feel for all of the people and the families that are involved, impacted, associated with the Vancouver Canucks, they come after the reporters, guys like me. Well, he's a fearmonger. He's inflating the numbers. He's doing this. He's doing that. So it's a throat punch, a throat flick, and the reverse. Because thanks to the Vancouver Canucks for coming out on Wednesday, and probably in response to Bonnie Henry, and saying, here are the facts. Here are the numbers. There was a variant that has been identified that has hit our organization. Right. Families are now being infected, not just the players. This is a deep and serious concern. So I wrap it up with an acknowledgement and an appreciation, the Vancouver Canucks coming out and being as transparent as they felt they needed to be, because it cleared up a lot of nonsense.
Okay, so Dregs, I think we're now at the point, we're 13 months into this pandemic, and we're all fed up to right here with it all. And so my throat punch is to both the federal and the provincial governments for a lack of leadership and a lack of clarity. Damn, look, we all know that everybody's figuring this out as they go along, right? We're all in appreciation of the difficulty of this. But there is no common sense and no clarity in direction. There is no leadership in this. So I thought the start of April would have been a great time to say, okay, look, we're dealing with this new variant. We don't know a lot about it. We're learning that it's more highly transmissible. Let's be a little more vigilant. Here are the do's and don'ts.
Right.
Just make 5 or 7 each. If you give your kid 27 instructions, they can't follow them. If you give them 4, they get a chance to follow them. So why gum it up and mix it up and, some schools go, some schools don't. How about give a break to the teachers, have a spring break, let them reset, let them regroup, let everybody take a little bit of time. I know we can't go on vacation, but let everybody regroup a little bit. Put some guidelines out there. Now, the information from the provincial governments and a lot of times is misdirection, in my opinion. It's not clear direction. It's misdirection. Look over here, don't worry about that there. Look over here, don't worry about that there. How about let's just have some clear guidelines? So I feel really grateful today. After we're finished, I'm going to get my first vaccine shot.
Nice.
So if Gord Miller wouldn't have walked me through the process, I wouldn't have really known where to sign on, to get on the pharmacy lists, to put your name into various pharmacies so you could get your shot. Now, maybe I should know, but that should be for everywhere you turn around, there should be information. Go here, go here, go here, sign in here, here, and here. It's the most important issue that has been in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
I think. Why are people having to guess? What do people do that don't have a smartphone? How are they signing up? I just, that's the part that I want to give a throat punch to. There was a lack of clarity and a lack of direction. I'm not saying that they need to have all the answers, but there needs to be some clarity, and there just is not.
Well, and for the record, we try not to get too political or go after things on the podcast. People get enough of that by watching the news and going through Twitter and all that. Yeah. But in fairness, as you've just explained, and I've gone through, we don't have a choice. It's impacting our lives. It's impacting our professions. It's impacting the people that we cover. Obviously, the Vancouver Canucks and the teams have been associated. So we're not going to make a habit of this unless we don't have a choice. And I don't feel like in episode 17 of Ray and Dregs, we had much of a choice. All right, our good friend Chris Abbott from Coolbet.co now joins us for his weekly stop here in Ray and Dregs. So many ways we can go with this week, Chris, but I want to go to the bizarre first. And then the Masters seems pretty obvious. We'll get to that in just a second. But as we were preparing for the podcast, you explained to Ray and I that there are actual odds for WrestleMania. Like, how is this even possible? I mean, it's all effectively scripted, or at least that's my vision. I wouldn't call myself even a fringe fan of WrestleMania. I acknowledge those who are diehard fans, but how can you bet on something that seems so unreal?
Right. It's like trying to bet on what happens on the Friday episode of The Young and the Restless, right? It's the same thing. It's scripted. Well, it's interesting, but it's popular. So first things first, yes, it's scripted. Yes, somebody knows the outcome. So generally the betting limits on these things are fairly low, right? Like you can probably profit less than $100 on a single bet, but still you can profit $100 if you know the answer. So money's money. But what we found over the years is that people are clamoring for this, and it's sports entertainment. There's a winner and a loser, and people like to get involved. So what sportsbooks do is put up some odds and let people bet on it, and then hopefully they stick around and play a little bit more. And it's kind of a marketing angle more than anything. One of the interesting
things, can you
though, bet
on like the finishing move, or?
I suppose you could. Yeah. I mean, we don't have markets for that, but I remember. So last year, for example, we had how many German suplexes will Brock Lesnar do in his match, right? And we had an over under. And so then the bookmakers, they hate us marketing guys for that, because they're like, this isn't real. Like, how are we supposed to do this? I'm like, well, you have to sit down and count how many suplexes Brock Lesnar does. So yeah, it's pretty funny, but it's just one of these things. It's a bit of fun. It's interesting. Same thing for the Royal Rumble, where Edge, a Canadian, won, and I think he was like 6-1 to win the event. So it was it was a bit of fun. And one of the really interesting things though is that because the outcomes are generally known, the odds are usually prohibitive to bet them. But I guess the news hasn't leaked out too much, because when I look at some of our odds, like minus 250 for a winner, minus 143, like they're legit. You can bet on those and not have too much risk. So yeah, it's a bit of fun. But I mean, listen, I'm a huge wrestling guy, or I was when I grew up. Gorilla Monsoon, Bobby Heenan, those guys, they shaped my life for better or worse when you go back and listen to some of the comments. But absolutely loved it, and I'm glad that we have odds on it.
Well, in WrestleMania 1, which was in the Silver Dome in Detroit, I was playing in Hartford. Our team got a block of tickets to the Hartford Civic Center. We watched it on the big screen. Like it was
the closed
packed.
caption, the
It
closed
was
circuit.
packed, closed circuit. It was, and we're in there. Sylvain Cote, somehow he got the nickname Coco Beware, so we called him Coco, the wrestler Coco Beware. Paul McDermott used to hit guys. He'd come around the back of the net and just, man, he was big and tough, and he'd run people over. And there was a wrestler, King Kong Bundy, and his finisher move was the avalanche. And so that hit got called the avalanche zone when Dermy would finish somebody off behind the net. So we were huge wrestling fans back in the day.
That's amazing. I model my hairstyle after King Kong Bundy as well. So yeah, I certainly get in with that. But I love it. I love it, Ray. That's amazing. That must have been so cool. And I mean,
it was so fun.
At that point, there was still a realism to it. Like you knew of it wasn't real, but people took it seriously.
The Hulk slammed Andre the Giant. Like, how could that not be real? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, well, that is real. Yeah.
By the way, have you ever seen the Andre the Giant documentary? Like, fascinating. Like, I mean, the life of Andre the Giant, and part of it was wrestling, but part of it was the disease that he had, which made him so gigantic. But I mean, they used to pull. You'd have to fly business class everywhere, but they'd take rows out of the airplane so that he could sit comfortably, and he'd hold a bottle of red wine in his hand, and it looked like a small beer bottle.
Dregs, I'm not kidding. We ran into him in the airport in Chicago one time, and so my nickname was Pee Wee, and so they're like, Pee Wee, go stand up there, go stand up there. So I went up and stood next to Andre the Giant, and just kind of like off to this. I wasn't going to talk to him or anything.
Yeah.
He was drinking a beer it was in like a little lounge. It was like a toy in his hand. And
I'd say
he had a sweat stain, guys.
Lounge.
He had a sweat stain up his back. It was this wide. The man was enormous. It must have been everything in effort to walk from here to there for the guy.
So we started this segment making fun of the fact that there are odds on WrestleMania. And we've spent the better part of 7 to 10 minutes talking about great stories from wrestlers. So
okay, what are the odds for the Masters? Let's go quick. DJ's got to be the favorite, right?
That's a tough one.
Yeah, DJ is the favorite. And Ray, I know you love your golf. So DJ and actually Justin Thomas are tied at 10-1 as the favorite right now, with Bryson just behind them at 11-1. By the time this drops, round one will probably be in the book, so these odds will change. But all the big names are at the top, and everything I listen to this week, guys, talks about how no name guys win the Masters. It's always, for the most part, somebody you've heard of or someone you can cheer for. So that's why, you see a lot of the big names at the top of the board. I've even heard of people betting on Patrick Reed at plus 3,200. So I don't know what you think about that.
You know what?
I guess
that's not a Patrick Reed can play. He's not a good guy to cheer for. He's tough to cheer for, but he can play. He's won there before. My dark horse, a guy that's never won, is Colin Morikawa. I think that guy's going to break through. And I think the sucker bet is Jordan Spieth, that everybody loves Spieth. He won last week. He's not winning this week.
No, there you go. Agree with
that's my, what do you call those? Those are my touts.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Is that the right term?
Yeah, it is. Morikawa's plus 3,200 as well. So, I mean, you get 32 times your money for a bet on him if you want to get it in. And then you got Brooks playing on one knee at plus 2,500. So, I mean, some people are trying to be cute and say, well, you'd never get him at that number. Well, there's a reason, because he'll probably withdraw before it's all said and done. So, listen, it's going to be exciting. Everybody's fired up. One of the things you can do as well is wait for the tournament to start. And then the odds will shift, and you'll be able to bet them mid-tournament once you see where it started. But it's going to be a real big weekend for betting.
We'll let you go with this, but I mean, can you bet on, like, Bryson DeChambeau as an example is a love-hate guy, right? And a lot of golf fans just can't stand him for a myriad of reasons, other than he's a terrific golfer. But can you bet on a player like that to miss the cut, or do something ridiculous, or, shoot a 75 in round one or something along those lines?
Yeah, you can bet on guys to miss the cut. You can bet on him. Is it 13, the one they're talking about, him driving the green over the tree, whatever? You can bet on whether he'll be able to do that during the event. You can bet on, number of balls in the water on par threes, hole in one. You can really exhaust your bankroll betting on all kinds of things on this event if you'd really like to.
I love it. Probably 4 putts, things like that, right? 3 putts for sure. The greens are so lightning quick at Augusta this weekend, or supposedly. There's going to
always
be
are. Always are.
All right, Kris Abbott from Coolbet.co joining us weekly here on the Ray and Dregs podcast. Thanks again, buddy.
Thanks so much, guys. Take care. Enjoy the Masters and WrestleMania.
All right. You have to check out our social channels at Ray and Dregs or rayanddregs.com, the website. Kris Abbott has just posted a picture of himself, and he explained a bit about a buddy who put his head on the body of Bam Bam Bigelow.
It is amazing. Amazing.
Kris,
he is Bam Bam Bigelow.
That's the thing. Like, you put your head on Bam Bam Bigelow or mine, it looks completely ridiculous, and it appears to be exactly what it is. Photoshop nonsense. Kris Abbott looks like Bam Bam Bigelow.
Yeah, I don't know if you want your doppelganger to be a guy that's like 6'4", 335 or whatever Bam Bam Bigelow is, but he is Kris Abbott.
Well, thanks to Kris for sharing that on
his awesome
channels as well. That is terrific. Time for Ask Ray and Dregs Anything. Effectively, we're dedicating episode 17 to Ask Ray and Dregs Anything. But remind you, you can send your questions to us on Twitter at Ray and Dregs or on our website, rayanddregs.com. It's brought to you by Endy.ca. We are loving our Endy mattresses. I know the Ferraro family is. I know I've referred a whole bunch of friends and family members to Endy, and they're loving them as well. Just so good. The experience overall. I mean, you order the Endy mattress, Ray, and it's like a day later. This thing
shows up in a box at your house.
It's awesome.
I gotta say, I did enjoy, Dregs, when you take the mattress out of the box and you slit the plastic and it just poof.
Pink insulation. That's what I call it. Yeah. Just you split that bag and it just goes like that. 100-day free trial. And I remember back in the day when you first got yours, I'm not, like, I don't sweat. I'm not a guy who gets hot at night, but you feel cool in the mattress, right? Like everything about
I sweat tying my shoes, Dregs.
What's that?
I sweat tying my shoes.
Yes,
so I really appreciate how cool you stay with the mattress. I really do.
No kidding. Money back guarantee. If you don't love it as much as Ray and I do, our friends, our family, everybody associated, Endy will give your money back. That's why Endy is the best mattress in Canada. So check them out at Endy.ca. Man, we've got some deep questions, deep questions here and Ask Ray and Dregs Anything. You want to start with the hockey side? You want to start with the business side? I can pepper you with all of this stuff.
Pepper them all, man. Dregs, because they're all related now.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's all like a tangled web.
Okay. Well, let's, with all due respect to Aaron, who submits the first question, I'm going to ask it because it's an important question. But there are hockey fans out there who will find it a bit eye-glazing because it's business specific, right? What are the biggest ramifications of the flat salary cap on not only trade deadline and free agency, but the expansion draft for Seattle? I mean, it's a big question because there's multiple ways you can go with the answer.
Well, I would say in relation to Seattle, so the cap's 81.5. Seattle has to spend to the floor for sure. Seattle, what is the floor? Is it about 64 million, Drake? Something like that?
Yeah, 63 and change, I think, something like that.
So they also have to draft 30 players. They don't get to draft somebody from Vegas,
right? Which
is quite a perk for Vegas.
Oh, boy.
So of those 30 players they draft, 20 of them at the minimum have to be under contract for next year. So Seattle has to draft at least 20 guys that are instantly in their organization.
Yeah.
And then they're free to spend and draft and do whatever the heck they're going to do. So one of the things Seattle's going to be able to do, I think without question, is find a team. Well, they're not going to have to find them because these GMs are going to be calling Ron Francis like crazy and saying, hey, Ron, I got a great idea for you. Why don't you take this guy that's gumming up my salary cap in the expansion draft? And Ron's like, yeah, I don't really want him, but I'd like him with a second round pick, or I'd like him with a first round pick. And so in the past, when Vegas got all those extra picks, it was because teams didn't want to lose a certain player. I think this time, Dregs, it's going to be about the implications of the cap. Teams have no flexibility, no room, no movement. And so they're going to be able to trade a player that is sticking in the middle of their salary cap to Seattle. Seattle's going to be able to take that money. But to do that, they're going to take one of your assets as well.
Yeah. So Zalmi asked a similar question. So I'm giving just a tip of the cap to Zalmi, who wanted to know a little bit more about Vegas expansion and how Seattle would do things differently. And you've kind of touched on that. Dave in Toronto, who is most likely to lose ice time if the Toronto Maple Leafs add what they need?
Depends what you think they need.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking at a top 6 winger, well, then it's Alex Galchenyuk for sure. There's nobody else in the mix. That's the guy that's going to drop. If they add a more physical, rambunctious forward, could it be Joe Thornton? He doesn't have a goal in 19 games. I mean, it's kind of a, out of the way story right now because things are going pretty well, but you've got Thornton, a player in Thornton that's playing 10 minutes a game and just can't find a way to produce anything. And that's an uncomfortable reality that they're going to have to look at.
Yeah. Where it really slapped me upside the head was a game against the Montreal Canadiens where Willie Nylander is unavailable because of protocols, right?
Right.
And they moved Mikheyev up into the top 6. Not that he's not an okay player, but I'm watching and he's fine. He's got quickness and
he works hard, sure.
Works hard. He's an effective player. But that's why they need another top 6, 7 guy.
Right. You need to have another option to move there. By the way, you know who I think of a lot, Dregs, and you'll know this player really well. When I watch Mikheyev get another breakaway shorthanded and not score, do you know who I think of from my day?
Well, I was going to say Todd Marchand.
Bingo.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Todd Marchand would get 3 breakaways a week. You couldn't catch him. That guy was a rocket ship. And you just end up picking up the puck behind, in your goalie's pads.
Yeah.
He just couldn't finish that last bit.
You imagine how much money he would have made. I mean, that was a different era of guys getting played. You know that better than I do. But if he had, if he had a 20% ratio on goals scored, which might be high on breakaways, I should know how many.
But man, he used to get a lot of them. Shorthanded, you'd be terrified. Our D would be like, well, don't give it back here.
Yeah.
Because if they bobble it, boom, he was gone.
He was gone. He's a good man, too. I used to have a lot of fun with Todd back in the day with the Oilers. All right. Suffering Sabres fans pulling at Ray's heartstrings here.
Sure. What do you got?
Okay. So this is from a collection of suffering Sabres fans. It seems Ray's brother-in-law, Donnie Granato, has discovered the secret to some Sabres success. He's let Rasmus Dahlin just be who Rasmus Dahlin is. So do we think that Donnie Granato has a legitimate chance at being hired as the Buffalo Sabres full-time head coach?
Well, who knows what Kevin Adams is thinking. Obviously, I am biased. Don's my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
He's a fabulous coach. He's not just a guy back there that's saying, hey, Rasmus, go do whatever you want to do.
Right.
There are parameters to the way that Donnie coaches, but there is a way that Don empowers players to be what they can be. Yeah. He's got zero ego. It's really remarkable when you talk to Don about hey, you did a good job with this team, and he'll flip it and talk about the team. Yeah. He'll talk about, he's done it forever. Everywhere that Don has been, there has been success, and it's not an accident. When he was with Green Bay back in the USHL, when he got started, when he won the Calder Cup, Don was on the fast track to being an NHL head coach. And then he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. So obviously treatment and recovery took priority, and it's been a long road back. But then he went to the national development team. Ask Austin Matthews what he thinks of him. Ask Jack Eichel what he thinks of him. These players, these top-end players that went through that program that blossomed under Don's leadership, coaching. Don should be an NHL head coach. I hope Buffalo goes on a run here and they take notice of what he has done. They've got points in 5 straight games. He'll be the first to tell you it helps having Linus Ullmark back in goal.
Yeah.
Right. But they're doing this with Taylor Hall. He hasn't, with all due respect, he hasn't broken a sweat in 3 weeks. Jack Eichel's not in the lineup. Right.
Yeah.
And they have made market improvement.
Yeah.
He's not a pushover either. First thing he did was he started working those guys way harder than Ralph Kruger was working them. Like, we need to work harder. We need to be in better shape. We need to be able to hunt the game better.
Yeah.
So it's not been easy.
Well, I'm not biased because I don't know Donnie well at all. I don't have the same history, obviously, that you do. But what I can do is read a resume. And for all of the reasons that you've just spoke on, I think he has to be given top consideration to assume the position full-time. He has to. I mean, I've seen, I've read, I've heard the rumors of Nate Lehman because of his connection to Kevin Adams potentially being a front runner. But Adams is living in it in the moment. And if he can see the results, and Kim and Terry Pagula, the owners of the Buffalo Sabres, see the results, and they know what they have to go through, and what they have to go through is going to be more than a renovation. I know that's a word that bugs you because it's not. It's either a rebuild or it's not a renovation. It's a tweak. So if they're headed towards a rebuild, and it certainly would be if you're trading your captain Jack Eichel in the offseason, wouldn't you want somebody who's seen it and done it and literally knows how to mold young stars? Not just young underdeveloped players, but young stars. So
Dregs, the track record is sitting there to be looked at. There's not an unknown with Don. Will it be enough? I mean, I don't know. Here's the other thing. Of course, I badger him about, hey, what do you think? What do you think? He's like, I don't know. We got a game tomorrow in Jersey.
Yeah.
Like he's really good at that. Me, I would be sitting there with a pencil and paper and trying to figure out this connection and that connection and, worried about things I can't control. He's not like that.
All right. From Jet Effect. Heard there were rumors, guys, of Roslovic for Nikita Zadorov. Were those true? Well, I'll jump in and say, yeah, they were true. They were true. More, I think, in the summer, conversation between Stan Moman and Kevin Cheveldayoff. So now Jet Effect is asking, is it likely that Chevy is pushing or still interested in is it Zadorov or
Zadorov?
Yeah, Zadorov. And what would it take to get that trade done? So I didn't even know this question was coming. But did you see the mic'd up edition of Zadorov this week?
No, I didn't see it.
Okay, so after we're done with this, go watch it. It's humorous because, man, he talks a lot. And I mean, that's the sole purpose for miking up a guy. You don't want somebody who's not going to say anything.
Right.
But everything from being a cheerleader on the bench to communicating with either his D partner or a forward or whatever. And he'll go, time. No. Stuff like that.
Not that much time.
No, not that much time. And then I can't remember who they were playing, but somebody went after. Was it it doesn't matter who they were playing, but somebody gave an extra swipe at the goalie. And the big man came bruising in and just absolutely plastered this guy to the wall. And he literally, in that big Russian, it was like Drago with Rocky. That strong.
He is a monster.
Oh, he's a monster. Was he 6'6", 6'5", something like that? And he literally, he's towering over this guy. You got to see it. And don't touch my goalie. And then somebody else comes in to defend, and they're skating back to the bench, and you can't hear what the other player is saying to Nikita, but Nikita's just like, do it. It was like, I don't know what I was watching, but it's tremendous. So anyway, to get back to Zadorov in relation to the Winnipeg Jets, I think the issue is that Nikita either has, and you could say this about a lot of players, his really good games are really good games, and his bad games are horrendous, Right. And in this particular game, again, you'll see, he even comments, he goes, oh, I guess I'm going to set my career game record in penalty minutes, because he was in the box like a dozen different times. Well,
but let me say this about Chevy and the Jets here, is that last week, trying to think who they were playing, Derek Forbert blocked. Oh no, Pierre-Luc Dubois and Forbert ran together, and Forbert left the game. He kind of hurt his knee a little bit.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I went, they got to add another defenseman.
Yeah.
Derek Forbert is really important for them. And if he's out of the lineup, your next guy's Sami Niku.
Mm-hmm.
And because Nathan Beaulieu's out for the season with shoulder surgery, I think the Jets have to add a defenseman, somebody with a little size and a little experience, that if they have to go in, they can play. They know they can play. The Jets are a good team.
Yeah. And then you've got Blake Wheeler now kind of twisting in the wind a little bit, right?
Right. He's not going on that 5-game trip that starts today, which is Thursday.
Yeah. Indefinite injury, concussion-related symptoms. He took an elbow from Brady Tkachuk. And he had some stuff lingering. So I think they just want to get a hold of it, which is the right thing to do. Get him healthy for the playoffs. But that gums things up for Chevy, right? Like, when it comes to the concussion stuff, there's no certainty in any of that. He doesn't know that he's going to put Wheeler on long-term
Dregs,
injury.
I think the one thing, though, that is would help the Jets and really the Oilers and the Canadians and, of course, the Leafs is there's almost been a line between the teams in the playoffs and the teams out.
Right.
So you're going to be in. Those teams are going to be in. And so that maybe buys them a little time to wait.
Right.
Even though the deadline's Monday, they have time to wait. They're not going to fall out of the playoffs.
We've talked about the Toronto Maple Leafs. There's several questions about the Leafs, from goaltending to whether we believe they're going to, add that top 6 forward. So I'm not going to lump in all that because, look, we know this. It's Toronto. There'll be ample reporting on what the Leafs are doing for the next several days. And of course, when we record our emergency podcast post-deadline, we'll summarize all of it. An Oilers question from DB. I hope DB isn't what I think it is. It's one of my favorite phrases. I'm not going to say it. And there's a little baggery going on here.
Yes.
Do the Oilers have a chance going forward with 2 backup goaltenders instead of a consistent number 1? It's like having Rolison, Markkanen, Conklin all over again, but with no Pronger in front to help them or bail them out. They haven't had a true number 1 since Salo. So DB is not impressed with the goaltending of the Edmonton Oilers.
Well, DB, I would say your problems sit there. They sit elsewhere as well. If you're thinking about a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so you could pay $10 million for Carey Price, but you're paying $12.5 for Connor McDavid and you're paying $8.5 for Leon Draisaitl, worth every penny of it. That's $21 million in 2 guys.
Right.
Where are you getting a goalie, the one that he's talking about?
Yeah.
Where are you getting him? I think fans sometimes live in a fantasy world. Like, you can only put $81 million into an $81 million cap. I have this, you can't put 5 pounds of sand in a 4-pound jar. It doesn't fit. Yeah. So those goalies he mentioned without Pronger, you mean the Stanley Cup final game 7 that year? Yeah, it was fine. Yeah. Mike Smith has been as good as any goalie in the North this year. Do I trust it? I don't know, but they're paying him $1.5 million. This summer, Ken Holland's going to have upwards of $30 million to spend. If you think he's spending $8 million on a goalie, you're wrong, because they've got to do something with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, either sign him or try and sign a replacement if they can't get him signed.
Right.
Darnell Nurse is coming right around the corner. He's got 13 goals. What do you think he's going to cost? They don't need, with these guys they need about 3 15-goal scorers to go around them.
Yeah.
They don't need a 40-goal scorer because those guys are so good. Where they are going to need to spend, I think, Dregs, is find out, can Oscar Klefbom come back? Because he's a hell of a player.
Really
and
good.
if he can,
yeah,
maybe they're going to be okay when Evan Bouchard takes one of those jobs on the blue line.
Yeah. You probably cut Tyson Barrie loose. He's going to make
too much money.
Too much money. I'm going to say something. I'm going to suggest something outrageous. Okay?
Sure.
Outrageous. Zach Hyman.
Oh,
if the Toronto Maple Leafs aren't able to pay Zach Hyman at least fair value, not even fair market value. Because
so what's fair value, Dregs?
5+. Mm-hmm. 5+. Why wouldn't the oil, again, depending, you've got Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, like you said. I mean, Kenny has invested a lot of time in that negotiation. He'll exhaust it. But it's going to be a deal that makes sense to the Oilers. Sure. Not overpay just because Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has been a great teammate and a wonderful player.
They've already paid him $50 million.
Exactly right. Sorry, it's a business.
Yeah.
You're Zach Hyman, and the Leafs can't pay you more than $4.25. Just, again, we're just making this up. I am. But which is a hefty raise based on what he makes right now. He's a Toronto kid, loves playing for the Leafs, as they all do. I'm sure he wants to win, nothing more than wanting to win a Stanley Cup with Matthews and Marner and all of his buddies. But the business does take priority. And he's earned his place as a pending unrestricted free agent. And now you're looking at it and you're going, okay, well, wait a second. Maybe I can get the money that I've earned and I'm trading Marner and Matthews or Connor and Leon. That's not such a bad deal.
I don't think it takes too much creativity to imagine what that conversation is going to go like. Right? Like if you're the Oilers, of course you're going to talk to Zach Hyman. How many teams are going to be in that list to talk to Zach Hyman? Like, honestly, what a year he's having. But here, I will say this. He's going to make a bucket load of money. And if you've listened to me broadcast the Leaf games, you know how much I like and admire his style of play.
Mm-hmm.
Got to be careful. This is a career year. You have to be careful thinking that, Zach Hyman is going to score on a 30-goal pace every year, because he's not. He had 21 goals 2 years in a row. I think he's got 13 right now, maybe 14.
Yeah. And
it seems like every game he's on the score sheet. That's not the case, but that's what it seems like.
Right.
But 5+, I'm paying him that because I think he makes life easier for the big boys that he plays with.
Right. Like, end the game against the Montreal Canadiens. And look, this isn't a fan club of Zach Hyman show. It's just
turn it into one.
Yeah, it's an acknowledgement of how good he is. He takes a shot in the foot, right? At the end of that game, basically at the end, and he's trying to clear the zone. Montreal with the net empty. They've pressured Corey Perry, we talked about earlier in the podcast, doing what he does. He takes a shot in the foot, and you know how much that hurts. And he can't get off the ice. He's not trying to get off the ice. He's trying to make a play to clear the zone to end the hockey game. Well, they're successful. They kill the clock. And he literally, the first thing that comes to mind is he's skating towards Jack Campbell with his foot in the air because it hurts so bad. But he's got to acknowledge and celebrate with his teammates. Yeah. So he's not worried about his own well-being. He's just going to the crease.
When he blocked that, it just seems like that's what he does
Yeah.
on a game-to-game basis. I will say, like, I'm cognizant of how much I talk about him during a Leaf game.
I hear you.
And I'm like, okay, I got to, back the train up a little bit here. When Pavel Datsyuk was playing in Detroit, I had to remind myself, I wrote it on my sheet, enough of 13.
Less Pavel.
Oh my God. That guy'd take a drink of water and I'd be like, oh, look at how he drank that water. I just loved everything that Datsyuk did. I wanted to play like Pavel Datsyuk. If I could reinvent myself, it would have been that.
That's awesome. Okay. I think we've chewed through a bunch, but I do want to give a little bit of love. And this is, again,
it's a couple more, sure.
Okay. It's Vancouver related. And I don't dive too deep into the speculation, especially when it comes to young players, because you run into trouble, right? The team that owns this player calls you a day later and go, what are you even mentioning that for? It's not going to happen. It's silly. Anyway, we're mentioning it because we're on a podcast. From K.A. Man, any chance Jack Hughes could make his way to Vancouver, become a Vancouver Canuck, put a smile on Quinn's face, finally. So does Quinn not smile enough? Is that an issue in Vancouver? Like what?
Well, I don't know. I've talked to Quinn several times.
Yeah.
He's a super engaging kid. Yeah. Like, is he supposed to be giggle guy out in public during the games? I never put any. Could Jack Hughes get here to be no. No. Like, how is that going to happen?
So you're saying Pedersen for Hughes. Who says no?
Okay. Have we just about had enough of these articles?
Yeah.
Who says no?
Who
Me.
says no?
Me. I say no to all of them.
See, I give the writers of those articles a little bit of flexibility because doing insider trading twice a week, okay, to this stage leading up to the trade deadline, it's shooting fish in a barrel, right? Okay,
right.
Well, this could happen, that might happen, all of those things. But in the early days of the regular season, when there's nothing going on and you've got to come up with 4 minutes of content, I can appreciate these journalists sitting there going, you know what, I got nothing. The cupboard is bare. Who says no? It's time.
I get it. I mean, I'm just like, I'm looking at the deals. I'm like, who says no? Both teams.
Yeah.
Move on to the next one. Anyway, whatever. But no, right. I don't see it. You know what? Maybe the way that Quinn gets to play with one of his siblings is maybe they draft his brother.
Fair point.
That might be the easy way.
That might have been the easy way. This one, again, a speculative question. We'll wrap it up on this and I bring it up because it is a concern and it actually applies to the trade deadline and what the Boston Bruins may or may not do. It's Rich. Rich is asking, has Tuukka Rask potentially played his final game for the Boston Bruins? And we can't answer yes or no to that because we flat out don't have the answer. I know there's considerable concern about his health. They don't know the prognosis. And even though the Boston Bruins were definitely in on Kyle Palmieri, in on Taylor Hall, I think that Don Sweeney is very cognizant of that. You got to be careful, right? Like you can't, if there's an opportunity to add a piece like that without overpaying, then you do it. But if you're uneasy about what Tuukka's situation is, maybe this isn't the year to do that. Does that make sense to you?
Right. It really feels in Boston like they don't want to have a transition year, but they have to have one. You know, like just think of their defense is extremely young and inexperienced. They lose Krug, they lose Chara. Pretty hard to expect you're going to be the same team. They could use another forward for sure. So now you're looking at a couple of bigger pieces. Now you've got the question in goal. They played their young kid, Swayman, the other night. He got his first NHL win. Maybe it is time to, even though they don't want to burn a year of Bergeron as he gets older, maybe that's just what you have to do.
All right, buddy. I think that was good. That was fun. We got to 10 questions or so. We should do this. I don't know. Every few months, maybe. What do you think?
Sure, why not?
Let's crack it open.
Let the mailbag fill up, and
yeah,
and then we should, for sure.
Okay. What's it's Thursday. I
got to say, halfway through the podcast, when it clicked over to 8:00 a.m. Pacific time.
Yeah.
Just so if you might have noticed, I'm looking over to this side. My TV.
You're watching the Masters. I knew.
I'm watching the Masters over there. Yeah, of course I am. Going to get my first vaccine today, as I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
And then I got to go buy some Nespresso coffee. I'm out of my coffee.
Really? How many espressos do you?
No, Nespresso.
Today? Oh, Nespresso.
By the way, what a great machine that is. Oh,
really?
Love it.
The little pods?
Put the pod in, you get your different kinds of coffee. You got the espresso, you've got the medium ones, the Fortato. I like the Fortatos. Yeah. The Intenso is my morning coffee. So I'm out of coffee. I got to go.
I'm trying to think which World Championship it was and where we were staying. It might have been Denmark a few years back. But the hotel that we stayed in, all of our rooms had that nice little, you had the palatial suite. I mean, you're Ray Ferraro, you and Gord and PG, Paul Graham, have the palatial suites. Then the rest of us peasants actually have to stay on the lower floors of the hotels.
It was one of my favorite, don't lose your story about the coffee. It was one of my favorite things that I did there was my room looked out where you and Rashog would always do the stand-ups.
Yeah.
And I'd look out there and you knuckleheads would be taping something and you cannot stop needling Ryan Rashog. You can't do it. I'm watching and you're like, your tie's wrong. Oh, fix your jacket. You were on him and I'm watching from my window like, a floor above. Oh, I loved it. It was like my afternoon comedy.
There are two reporters, actually 2.5, because Sarah Orleski, as an example, does great work, hosts Winnipeg Jets games. You do a ton of those. Every time I'm on That's Hockey or I see Sarah pop up on camera, I take my cameras out and I'm just blast photoing, right? Because when you do that, you get the mouth half open, one eye closed, right. All of that. And I just stockpile this stuff. And every so often when I'm feeling a little ridiculous, I'll text her a picture. Hey, Sarah, how are you doing? And it's inevitably with her face twisted. And I do that to Rashog endlessly, especially with his hair, and Saravalli all the time. So anyway,
I will say I have seen a picture that perhaps when I've mentioned you to Sarah that she has sent to me of Drager face.
Yeah, she's got lots. Yeah,
Drager face is in contortion, and it's actually pretty good stuff.
Yeah. No, she's very good at it.
But Saravelli too, eh?
Yeah. Well, because he makes it so easy. We have the return feed when we're taping Insider Trading.
Right.
And sometimes he's behind. So, I mean, when I'm in studio, I let the makeup artist throw a little bit of powder on this old cracked face and away you go. At home, I don't even really bother. Like, I'm sitting in my home studio. But Frank has the old brush and but he doesn't. Well, the rest of us can see he's doing it on camera.
You know why he does that? Because he doesn't care.
He doesn't care, nor should he. But I take advantage of those things. So to just wrap up the coffee story, one of the great things about that hotel in Denmark was the little slide out coffee corner.
Yeah.
And it had the Nespresso pods. Oh, man, I look forward to that. I mean, we always have great breakfasts. I'm going to weep up here because we're not doing it again anytime soon.
Right.
But it's the culture and all of those things. But those are the little details and the takeaways that I enjoy the most. So I'm a big fan of Nespresso. I got it
for my birthday last year. I didn't know how much I was going to like it.
Nice.
It is phenomenal.
Is that a Cammy gift or one of the kids?
It is a Cammy gift. And then but the best part is you get to buy the coffee that you like, the taste that you like. Try a couple different ones and
You're a flavored coffee guy?
No, but just different intensities and
I
get the espresso for the afternoon, because I'm so refined, as you know.
Yeah. Little
there's lots of refinery in Trail, BC. Except it's a lead and zinc smelter. That's the refinery.
Some scout chirped me from Trail BC on Twitter. I didn't respond. I've learned not to do that anymore. I can't even remember what it was about, but took a swipe at me and I'm like, why would you do that when the bio says, a scout for so-and-so team from Trail? Like, I can read it. I can see it. I can find out who you are. Why would you do this to me? You're just poking the bear. But I did.
That's a maturity for you, Dregs. I like it. Good for you.
All right, we're wrapping up episode 17, Ray, with a huge shout out to our partners who make the podcast possible on a weekly basis. That's coolbet.co, the free-to-play sports and casino games website. OK Tire, it's going to be okay. OKTire.com by Yamaha. Yamaha revs your heart. Ray, Yamaha. What does Yamaha do?
I like when you do it. You go ahead.
Revs your heart.
I like when you do it. You've got a better voice. Mine revs your heart, doesn't come as well from me as you.
Yeah, but see, I mean, it's conversational.
I get it. I get it.
It's the average Joe, right? So,
I didn't understand that. Thanks for helping me out with that.
Yamaha revs your heart.
Revs your heart. Better?
Endy, the best mattress in Canada. And we need to welcome Tommy Guns, original barbershop. How much time... So if you're sitting in the Tommy Guns chair, is it, I have this quirky thing. When I go to the salon, and I've got lots of hair, so a salon sometimes is required, or in this case, a professional barbershop like Tommy Guns. I like conversation, but I'm on the clock. So I'm like, if it takes more than 15 minutes,
right.
We're going to have a conversation. It can't take more than 15 minutes.
Yeah,
let's go.
I had this guy that I used to go to, and he was a big soccer fan, and he'd be watching the soccer game while he's cutting my hair.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, hey,
let's go.
Because he stopped and well, I'm glad he stopped, but he'd be watching the game. I don't have a lot of hair. It shouldn't take very long. But when I get the Tommy Guns, I'm going to be a little beard coif.
Yeah.
I'll come out looking sharp.
Oh, I like it. And I, too, am looking forward to getting into a Tommy Gun soon and enjoying all of that experience.
Will they be able to do something with all that gray, like the way you streak it through?
That's just a touch of gray.
Oh, that's a lot of touch.
A lot of gray. No. Approaching 53, Ray. I'm a distinguished gentleman. I will not be following
53?
James Duffy.
When are you 53?
June 13th.
Oh,
June
excellent.
13th.
I'll have to get you a gift, same as last year.
Same as last year, the year before, and the year before that. All right, that's episode 17. Let's look to, is it 17 or 16? That's episode 17. Episode 18, we've already agreed. The negotiations have been completed. We've signed the contracts. It will be an emergency post-deadline podcast the evening of April 12th.
Yeah, so get to your GM buddies. Tell them, do not empty the canister before Monday.
What happens if there's like 3 trades? You better have a lot of research parked away.
If there's 3 trades, you are going to get Salty Ray, Exhausted Ray, and we'll fill that podcast for sure.
Can't wait. You have, I was going to say a great week, but it's less than a week. So enjoy the days ahead. Thrilled for you that you're getting vaccinated. I look forward to that day. I look forward to all of Canada being vaccinated, as I think we all do. And I also look forward to Salty Ray in episode 18. Meantime, thanks for tuning in, sharing, rating, doing all that you do as our podcast listeners. Tune in next week, episode 18. In the meantime, stay safe and be well. Thank you.